We are on air. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Consulate of Mexico in Philadelphia, I want to welcome all of you to this webinar that was made possible through the collaboration between the Mexican Ministries of Economy, Foreign Affairs, and our embassy in Washington, D.C., that will highlight the strategic partnership between the United States and Mexico and the many opportunities that the new USMCA trade agreement brings to the region. It is also a great honor to virtually welcome Undersecretary of Foreign Trade at the Ministry of Economy, Luz Maria de la Mora, to our region. I am certain that today's discussion, led by one of Mexico's foremost experts in the field, will help foster new ideas that will strengthen the trade relationship between Mexico and Pennsylvania, Delaware, and southern New Jersey. On July 1st, the trilateral relationship between Mexico, the United States, and Canada began a new era with the entry into force of the USMCA agreement, which seeks, among other goals, to support mutually beneficial trade, leading to freer, fairer markets and to robust economic growth in the region. For more than 25 years, the North American Free Trade Agreement has shown the benefits of working together in establishing a unique region that is both competitive worldwide and that creates opportunities for our communities. Thanks to our deep business ties, in 2019, Mexico became the United States' main trading partner. This is thanks to the work and vision of thriving business community that, like you, continue to look for innovative ways to create and foster business opportunities with Mexico. At the state level, we see similar trends. As Consul of Mexico in Philadelphia, I am proud to 1993, thanks to NAFTA, Pennsylvania exports to Mexico have increased more than 500%, and total trade now reach more than $11 billion, making Mexico the Commonwealth's third largest trading partner and second largest export market. We see many success stories, not only in Pennsylvania, but also in New Jersey, whose exports to Mexico are greater than all U.S. food manufacturing exports to China, as well as with Delaware, whose exports to Mexico surpass those of Brazil and India combined. Moreover, throughout these 2 decades, trade has not been one-way street. We have seen an increase in imports from Mexico to the region and also investments from Mexican multinational companies such as Cemex, Grupo Bimbo, Orbia, Gruma, and many others. It is thanks to this ever stronger trade relationship between our region and Mexico that more than 350,000 jobs in these 3 states are supported by trade with Mexico, including those that are directly employed by Mexican companies. Nevertheless, the global economy is different than it was during the 90s, and there are now new technologies, new economic centers, and more actors in the global arena that require new tools and updated strategy to maintain competitiveness. With the new trade agreement, Mexico, the United States, and Canada have the tools to address the many challenges that the 21st century brings to the world economy. In essence, as stated in the joint declaration between the United States and Mexico signed by our presidents last week, the new USMCA agreement is the ideal instrument to project economic certainty and increase confidence to our countries. The decisions that we implement today will have lasting impact in the future and, if taken correctly, will benefit the lives of many Mexican and U.S. citizens. I want to thank you all for joining us in this important webinar. And now I have the honor to present a great friend of Mexico and champion of free trade, Linda Conlin, President of the World Trade Center for Greater Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you, Consul Obrador. I appreciate your kind invitation to participate in this very important webinar on the new U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. And I want to express my personal appreciation and that of my team at the World Trade Center, to Undersecretary de la Mora for joining us virtually today. And we all look forward to personally welcoming you, Undersecretary, to Philadelphia in the future. You know, as a World Trade Center, we are one of over 300 in the world, with many in Mexico. In fact, last year, I had the honor to join other World Trade Centers in Querétaro for our General Assembly. Here in Philadelphia, we have an experienced trade team of specialists who each day work with companies to help them grow their export sales. And as the Consul said, Mexico is a very important market for us. If we look at Greater Philadelphia, it is our second largest market after Canada, representing over $3 billion in export sales. And if we look at the more than 7,000 exporters in this region, over half of those exporters were engaged in markets in Mexico and Canada. So we look forward to growing those sales through the new agreement. I want to say, Undersecretary de la Mora, that you have an experienced, engaged, and enthusiastic team in Philadelphia through the leadership of Consul Obrador, and we look forward to growing our commercial and cultural ties in the days ahead. And I look forward to hearing your very special perspective, Undersecretary de la Mora. And we again look forward to welcoming you personally to Philadelphia.
Hello to everybody. Thank you for your participation on this webinar and welcome. I am pleased to introduce you to Luz Maria de la Mora. I know that a copy of her biography has been previously sent to you. Luz Maria de la Mora is Vice Minister for Foreign Trade in the Ministry of Economy of Mexico since 2018. She has been head of the Unit of Economic Relations and International Cooperation in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And she also served as head of the International Trade Negotiation Unit in the Ministry of Economy and head of the Office of Mexico's Economist Ministry before the European Union in Brussels and Aladi in Montevideo, Uruguay. She served as economic counselor at the Embassy of Mexico in Washington, D.C., and was part of the negotiating team of NAFTA. In the academic field, she has been a visiting researcher at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and at the Center of U.S.-Mexico Studies of the University of California at San Diego. She holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from El Colegio de Mexico, a master's in international political economy from Carleton University in Canada, and a PhD in political science from Yale University in the U.S. Luz Maria, thank you for being here with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gerardo. It is a great pleasure for me to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for inviting me, for hosting this event, and for taking advantage of technology to be able to be close in spite of distance. Thank you so much, Consul Carlos Obrador, for taking the lead in organizing this, I think, very timely event that shows that Mexico and the US, and specifically Mexico, Philadelphia, and I know that New Jersey and Delaware are also part of your area of responsibility, so we will also be talking about them. I also want to thank Linda Conlin. Linda, thanks so much for hosting us today, for opening the doors to the Mexican Ministry of Economy and to Mexico to be able to share with you some of the opportunities that we see ahead as this new era of integration starts in North America. And I also want to thank Gerardo, who heads our office in our embassy in Washington, D.C., who is amazingly led by our ambassador, Marta Bárcena, and all of the network of consulates in the US. I think this is a fantastic opportunity to be able to maintain a conversation, which I hope will a very productive and long-standing relationship that we have already built as a result of NAFTA. So let me share my screen with you so I can give you my remarks. I promise I will be brief, but I hope that it will give you a sense of where we are with respect to our trade relationship. Let me see if, okay, give me 1 second, please. I just want to make sure that I am sharing the right screen. Otherwise, it sometimes doesn't work for me. So please, if you could just let me know if the screen moves, because I've had some challenges with technology, even if I have become really savvy with respect to all these webinars. So, okay, let me see. It's not, okay. Yeah, I think it's working, right?
It's working, yes.
Okay, very well. So as I was saying, and I think that it also brings, comes very nicely in terms of the fact that USMCA became effective on July 1st this year. And I want to remind our friends today here that USMCA really builds upon the integration that we were able to establish as a result of NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement that was in place between 1994 and June 30th this year. USMCA, as well as NAFTA at its time, brings certainty, which I think it's key. It's really a key element for integration in North America because it offers clear rules for trade and investment. USMCA also keeps free trade and ensures that we can continue to deepen our integration. And why do I say to deepen this integration? As you can see in this table, there are 24 chapters that are colored in red that were already part of NAFTA. These provisions, these disciplines were modernized, updated, they were adjusted to the realities of the 21st century and also to the realities of how NAFTA evolved in the last 26.5 years. Now you see those provisions colored in green. These are the new policy areas in which the three countries, the three of us, decided that we wanted also to be part of North American integration success stories. So you see labor provisions, environmental provisions, anti-corruption provisions, but also those provisions that are related to the new economy, the digital economy, the economy of the 21st century. So what we have today as a result of the new USMCA is a deeper integration among the three of us. So how can we summarize some of the areas in which we see this deeper integration? And let me just, for the sake of time and also for the sake of analysis, summarize all of these 34 chapters into key areas of opportunity and of how we see this integration taking place. The first one has to do with how this USMCA will enhance our regional competitiveness. These are chapters that have to do with free trade in goods and services, regulatory coherence. You know that regulations today are the name of the game in the sense that they can become costly for businesses. So what we want to do in North America is to reduce the cost of regulations. Regulations are important. They are key for the market, for a good operation of the market, for consumers, for health. However, regulations should not become a burden for doing business in North America. So this is a new key element that will help us to have the best quality regulation in North America, which will help businesses develop in a more competitive and efficient way. We also maintain liberalization of investments in the region, which are also key for this productive integration to maintain regional value chains operating, and also to make sure that we are a region where investments can flow freely, and specifically those areas where there are restrictions that investors know well in advance. In addition to that, we also have improved provisions regarding sanitary and phytosanitary measures, which are essential for the well-being and the free flow of agricultural products, medicines, and the like, and also technical barriers to trade. As in the case of regulatory coherence, we need to make sure that all businesses in North America have the best technical regulations available. So these are provisions that will make sure that North America's regional competitiveness is not only maintained, but is deepened and increased. Now, there are elements in the new USMCA that call for an inclusive and responsible trade. These are areas related to SME participation. Small and medium-sized companies are the vast majority of the productive network in North America, as well as in Mexico. And we want to make sure that USMCA benefits are also extended to these kinds of companies. SMEs are the engine of economic activity. They are the engine of job creations. And we need to make sure that SMEs participate either directly or indirectly in this integration success story, to the extent that we can provide training, information, and all of the necessary tools that SMEs need to be able to know about these opportunities. We know that we will include more sectors, more regions, and more companies, which will yield great benefits to all the local economies in North America. And I am sure that this will be the case also for companies in Philadelphia, in Delaware, and in New Jersey today. So that to the extent that we can offer these opportunities, that we can offer those toolkits, instruments, we know that SMEs will be able to make business among themselves in North America. And this is one of the key areas that we will be working on as USMCA moves along. Now, there are other areas like labor rights, environmental protection, and anti-corruption, where the three of us have decided that we want to make sure that they are part of the success story of North America. Why do I say this? Because to the extent that the three of us have decided that we want to make sure that our labor laws, our environmental laws, our anti-corruption policy framework is fully implemented, then we will create a better environment for business. And we will make sure that those benefits extend to everyone. There's a third set of disciplines in USMCA that have to do with certainty in trade and investments, and that is built in the dispute settlement mechanisms of the agreement. That is to say, state-to-state provisions in Chapter 31. That is to say, if any one of us implements measures that go against what we agreed in the USMCA, then we know that we will have the opportunity of making sure that these provisions are aligned with our commitments. Also, there's investor state provisions, this arbitration mechanism that will ensure that investments from foreign investors in the three countries will be respected and protected according to provisions in USMCA. And also we have trade remedy laws. Trade remedy laws will help companies who are dealing with anti-dumping duties or countervailing duties that should not be in place. Then we know that they will be able to have the right to request for support, no? And the last one has to do with the opportunities for the 21st century. These are provisions that have to do with intellectual property, with digital trade, with e-commerce, with financial services, and also with all of those provisions that will create a new situation for creating new opportunities for the economy. And what I'm saying here is that The 21st century is based on knowledge, on value added, on ways in which we can create the new economy based on Internet of Things, Industrial Revolution 4.0. And in this respect, the provisions that are contained in USMCA will help create the new economy, the basis for the new economy of the 21st century. Now, this is the introduction for where we are with respect to USMCA and how USMCA builds on NAFTA. So the NAFTA was able to set the new era for USMCA, creating a North American successful partnership. And I want to start by mentioning something that has been already mentioned by Consul Obrador. President López Obrador visited Washington, D.C. on July 8th. And this visit, I think, is very significant because it shows Mexico's commitment to USMCA and to the future of North America's integration. July 1st is a date that will be remembered as the beginning of a new era of integration in North America. And it not only builds upon a success story of economic integration and productive integration, I think it also sends a message that the three of us, Mexico, the US, and Canada, have decided to join efforts to be able to remain as one of the most competitive and dynamic regions in the world that builds on a market of close to 500 million people, a GDP of close to $26 trillion, with where the three of us represent an economy of close to 18.3% of world GDP. The region is also home to 23% of world FDI. And today we represent the first destination for FDI worldwide. As a bloc, as a region, North America represents the second largest global exporter worldwide, 15.9% of global trade, accounting for $6 trillion worldwide. That is what the three countries trade together alike. And then as a NAFTA, the three of us trade $1.2 trillion, which represents 20% of the region's total trade. Under NAFTA, Mexico's economic infrastructure, economic manufacturing sector changed dramatically. NAFTA changed Mexico's economic face. And this was a result not only of integration to North America, not only of integration through trade, but also as a result of the foreign direct investment that Mexico's manufacturing sector, services sector, mining sector has received as a result of the liberalization of the investment regime. Today, the US is our most important investor in Mexico with more than $277 billion, while Canada is our third largest investor in Mexico with more than $41 billion. NAFTA also transformed Mexico's trade. In the early 1990s, Mexico's export platform was basically composed of oil and mineral products, commodities, and a small share of export of manufacturing. As a result of NAFTA and as a result of Mexico's opening and trade liberalization through a number of free trade agreements, Mexico's export sector and overall its international trade became an important engine of economic growth for Mexico. And you see in this graph the export and import activity. You see also the line above the bars. This line reflects the growth of Mexico's total trade, imports and exports. And it also shows how Mexico has constantly increased its trade in the world and in North America. So that, as was already mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, in 2019, Mexico became the US top trading partner, ahead of Canada and ahead of China. This has been a result not only of the fact that Mexico has benefited somehow from the trade tensions between China and the US, but also I want to remind everyone here that when NAFTA became effective in early 1994, Mexico's total share in US trade was close to 7%. So in 26 years, Mexico basically doubled its share of participation, increasingly every year. That shows the kind of integration that we have accomplished with the US economy and also in North America. Mexico also became the top US trading partner in agricultural products. In 2019, the US and Mexico traded over $47.5 billion. Mexico is the top exporter or market, I should say, for key products in the US export basket, for example, corn, soybeans, pork, and other products, making Mexico and the US an integrated agricultural market where Mexico sells fresh produce and some other products that combine very nicely to offer the US consumer healthy products and to bring to the US families and the US tables at home fresh produce that complements a healthy diet in the US. Mexico is also a key market for US states exports. We account for 29 US exports where Mexico is either the largest, the second, or the third largest market for the US. So you see that the export opportunities that NAFTA has created for the US are widespread throughout the country. In the specific case of Pennsylvania and New Jersey, I just want to offer a few numbers that I think highlights the level of integration and importance of our two markets. With respect to Pennsylvania, trade with Mexico supports close to 20,000 jobs. Exports to Mexico account for 10% of Pennsylvania's total exports, and imports from Mexico account for 8% of its total imports. With respect to New Jersey, trade with Mexico supports more than 140,000 jobs, where exports to Mexico account for 18% of the state's total exports, while imports from Mexico account for 1 in every $4 that are imported in New Jersey come from Mexico. And this also is a result of the kind of regional integration that we have been able to build in North America. And this is where I think the integration looks very evident. And this is the shared production that we have. We not only trade, but we produce together. And we produce together for the North American market, but also for the world market. As you see in this table, there is production and there is therefore trade in the same sectors, and I can say also in the same firms. So you see production of vehicles and auto parts, trucks, diesel motors, tractor seats taking place in this trade, as well as in the electronic sectors, for example, phones, cell phones, TVs, computers, integrated circuits, accessories, and computers, which combine very nicely to have this very competitive production. In the case of Pennsylvania and Mexico, we see the same kind of patterns. We see that Mexico, Pennsylvania trade in tractors, vehicles, trucks, auto parts on both sides. And we also see in the electronic sector, televisions, electric batteries, phones, cell phones, parts for electronics, electric switches, catalytic preparations, and the like, which are part of the same industry trade. We see regional value chains that are specialized in the automotive, electronics, and chemical sectors. And as Consul Obrador mentioned at the beginning of the talk, these are the products that make for a trade that already surpasses $11 billion between us. And I want also to take the opportunity to mention New Jersey, which is also a similar case of shared production and integrated manufacturing in sectors like the chemical sectors and the machinery sectors. You see in this table that we exchange automatic regulating instruments, medical instruments, appliances for thermocontrol valves, and on the other side, centrifuges. And in the chemical sector, we see a number of products coming into Mexico from New Jersey that are integrated into North America's production. I want also to highlight that exports from top metropolitan areas of Pennsylvania and New Jersey support exports, support growth, and also supports jobs. For example, in the case of the metropolitan area of Philadelphia, Camden, Wilmington, exports account for $3.2 billion, which represent a share of 14% of that metropolitan total exports. In the case of Pittsburgh, we know that close to $1 billion are taking place in this metropolitan area, and this represents 10% of its total exports. Whereas for New York, Newark, and Jersey City, exports to Mexico account for $5.4 billion, which represent 6% of its total exports to the world. But I also want to underscore the fact that we see important growth since 2005. So I want to go ahead and explain very briefly, because I know that we're running a little bit out of time, why choose Mexico for your business decisions? Why Mexico makes sense? Not only because we have a new USMCA, not only because we have already proven that we are a good business partner, but I also want to underscore some of the reasons why Mexico continues to be a key trading partner and an economic ally to the US. And I want to just briefly highlight some of the reasons why we are underscoring the kind of partnership and the kind of trade and investment relationship that we can develop between our two nations and between Mexico and Pennsylvania and Mexico and New Jersey and Delaware. Today, Mexico is the 7th largest exporter in the world and the first in Latin America. We have a network of 13 free trade agreements with 50 countries in the world that connect to more than 1.3 billion consumers. That is more than twice the North American market, which represent 60% of world's GDP. Mexico also offers a solid infrastructure and logistics network. According to the World Economic Forum, we rank among the top 30% countries with best transportation infrastructure. That is to say, we have 172,000 kilometers roads, where 62.4% of Mexico's total exports move. We have 27,000 kilometers of railway tracks that move 13% of Mexico's total exports. For example, there's a railway company from the US, Kansas City, that has been operating in Mexico for some decades already and supports the export activity or the trade activity between our countries. We have 117 ports that move close to 20% of our exports and 76 airports, out of which 64 are international airports that move more than 4% of our exports. We have a strategic location and a competitive logistic costs. When we compare shipping costs between Mexico and China, we see that Mexico's shipping costs are $9 per square meter compared to $140 from China. And with respect to maritime days to selected destinations, for example, you see in this chart how Mexico compares favorably as it relates to ports in New York, LA, or even Rotterdam and Yokohama with respect to other countries that are also manufactured. And we have more than 50 ports of entry between the US and Mexico. Mexico has also been able to create and build a diverse and innovative industrial platforms. This is really important because Mexico ranks as the 19th most complex economy, which means that Mexico is capable of attractive new activities, new sectors, new production processes, new activities. We have the kind of infrastructure that is required to develop new sectors. More than 2/3 of our exports are in high complexity sectors, as you can see in this graph. And also Mexico has become a leader in manufacturing production. We are the 6th largest world producer of vehicles and the 4th as exporter worldwide. We're the 6th largest supplier of aircraft parts to the US, and that continues to build. Safran, the French aerospace company, just announced a few days ago that it will expand its investments in Mexico to build a joint venture with Boeing from the Washington state. Mexico is the 6th largest exporter of information technology products and services, which are essential to the new economy. And we are also the 8th largest exporter of medical devices worldwide. And Mexico has been key to offer PPE and medical devices to address the pandemic, not only in Mexico, but also in the US. We offer a competitive and cost-effective manufacturing sector where Mexico ranks among the most cost competitive with respect to natural gas for industry. And in the Global Manufacturing Cost Competitiveness Index, we rank in one of the most competitive sectors. The US is the base with 100. So everything that is under 100 is very cost competitive. So you see that Mexico is more competitive than India, Vietnam, or China, which would be our most natural competitors, not to mention other developing economies. So Mexico and the US together are very competitive worldwide. Mexico also has been able to develop internet connectivity and broadband access that supports the 4th industrial revolution, Internet of Things, and the digital economy. In this graph, you see that Mexico is 3rd in mobile broadband subscriptions within OECD, only after the US and Japan. We have a 74% mobile penetration rate that has grown at an annual growth rate of 17% in the past 5 years. So today, Mexico has more than 92 million mobile broadband subscriptions. In addition to that, let me mention you that Mexico is a young country. Overall, the average age in Mexico is of 27 years old. When we see the working age population in Mexico, we see that almost half of our population is located in the 30 to 49 age cohort. So that tells you about the kind of skilled labor force, but also tells you about the kind of market that is developing in Mexico. A young population that still can contribute tremendously to the production of North America. And when we see the number of graduates from engineering programs, I can also share with you that every year, 17% of graduates in Mexico come from engineering programs, which compares favorably with other developing countries. And just to finish, I want to tell you a little bit about the story of challenges and opportunities for USMCA. Where do we see the opportunities? USMCA deepens our integration. It brings new policy areas that the three of us will have to comply with: labor, environment, corruption. And we also see tremendous opportunities in developing a stronger value chain, a stronger supply chain in North America. There are stricter rules of origin for the automotive sector, for example, to develop regional sourcing. There are opportunities in the steel and aluminum sector because USMCA requires that 70% of steel in automotive products come from North America, that they are originating. And I have to also mention that as of the 7th year of implementation, that is to say, in July of 2027, steel that will be incorporated in the automotive production will have to be melted and poured in the region. That calls for greater investments in the steel sector in North America. We also see great opportunities in agriculture. We are key trading partners, and agriculture, without a question, is one of the areas in which we have seen a win-win situation. Textiles and apparel, which rely heavily on the chemical sector, are also great opportunities to the extent that we are committed to building a value chain, a supply chain that goes from the very basics, from the very inputs and components of the yarn forward rule of origin, that will create opportunities for the chemical sector, the textile sector, and the apparel sector. And regarding the digital economy and e-commerce, the new provisions will definitely create a new market where we have not seen one previously in North America. The digital economy and e-commerce definitely open very good opportunities and new areas of opportunities to use technology in the region to create more access to companies in the small and medium-sized sector that have not been able to benefit or enjoy the benefits of integration in North America. All of us know that today we're facing a very challenging time with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic. And how do we address this challenge, this common challenge that is putting very serious constraints on production, on being able to have social gatherings, on being able to operate the way we used to operate. And under USMCA, we have the opportunity of working together through different committees, through different chapters. We have the Competitiveness Committee, where we have an agenda to make sure that these kinds of challenges do not affect our correct operation. And I want to mention and underscore that the three governments, Mexico, the US, and Canada, at all levels, have worked coordinately to define protocols and conditions to allow transitions towards reopening productive activities, for example, essential activities such as the transportation sector. We have also been able to use information technology to be able to keep us moving, to keep production going, and to maintain contact in a very challenging time of confinement and of health, and of a health crisis like what we're facing. We hope that we will be able to overcome this soon, but nonetheless, we know that we need to coordinate ways in which we can secure health. And one of the things that we have done is to coordinate border crossings to make sure that regional value chains maintain their activity without putting at risk the health of our citizens. So the implementation of USMCA comes at a really key time in this situation, because USMCA offers the certainty that investors, producers, exporters, consumers need to be able to plan ahead in a very uncertain time. USMCA also will be a key factor in the economic recovery of the three countries, as it will contribute to the relocation, the nearshoring, and decoupling of some value chains, of some sectors that have decided that they need to build more resilient global value chains without putting in jeopardy the competitiveness of this production. So USMCA opens tremendous opportunities for Mexico and Philadelphia, Mexico and New Jersey, Mexico and Delaware. And I want to invite you all to look further into the new opportunities that USMCA brings. And I want to invite you to consider Mexico in your business operations, in your business plans, because you will see that with Mexico, things will be better for North America. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Vice Minister de la Mora, for this presentation. Now we can move on with the agenda and start with a Q&A session. We received dozens of questions. Thank you for your interest and for sending your questions in advance. Due to the time we have available, it is difficult to answer all of them. Nevertheless, we will send you a written response to each one of them by the same email we received it. The first question is the following. What products are still subject to tariffs between the US and Mexico? Thank you.
Thank you, Gerardo. Okay, the trade between the US and Mexico under USMCA is a preferential trade. That means that there are no tariffs to those products that can show that they originate from North America. That is to say, they need to comply with a rule of origin. Rules of origin are specified in Chapter 4 of USMCA. Please go into our website. The Economia website has a section on USMCA. You can find the text of USMCA, and you will see there on Chapter 4 what are the criteria that a product needs to comply with. And in case that your product has a specific rule of origin, you can also find it there. In addition to the rule of origin, you need to have a certification of origin when you export or import any product in North America to be able to request the preferential access, the duty-free access. So I also want to invite you to revise Chapter 5. We have simplified the certification of origin. It is a self-certification that has very basic information that needs to be incorporated into your invoice, your bill of lading, whatever commercial document you use. But overall, what we have tried to do is to simplify the life of operators to be able to make sure that they can enjoy the benefits of duty-free access under USMCA. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question we received is the following. How will the USMCA be different for USA manufacturers?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it? I didn't get it quite well.
Yes. How will USMCA be different for USA manufacturers?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question. In some respects, USMCA, with respect to rules of origin, there are changes that in the auto sector, for example, it will require more integration and more sourcing from North America. So that brings new opportunities for the region, new opportunities for producers along the supply chain of the automotive sector to be able to be part of that value chain. Original equipment manufacturers in the vehicle sector, in the light vehicle sector, in the trucking sector will require to have more procurement from North America and from the US. There's also a labor value content of 40% for vehicles and 45% for trucks. It will open new opportunities for companies that pay those kinds of salaries, and those basically are located in the US and Canada. A second point that I want to mention has to do, for example, with the chemical sector. The chemical industry will greatly benefit the sector that acknowledge the kind of technology changes that have taken place in the last 26 years. So I invite you to check those provisions. We know that the chemical sector is a very important base for a number of sectors throughout North America. There's also sectoral annexes in the chemical industry, the medical devices sector, information technologies, and the like. Those sectoral annexes, what they do is that they make sure, or they intend to make sure, that we as a region have the best regulation available. We know that regulatory coherence is essential to be able to have a competitive region. So we are working on those kinds of regulations. We're working to have the best regulations in North America. And I am convinced that this will create great opportunities for the manufacturing sector in the US and in Mexico and Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Minister de la Mora. The other question is the following. What economic sectors in Mexico present opportunities for trade and investment under the new agreement?
Thank you. I think that North America in itself is opportunity, and USMCA really covers every opportunity. I just want to mention one context in general that I think we should bear in mind. There are many companies today that are considering how to build more resilient value chains and more resilient regional value chains. This is a challenge that everybody is facing, first as a result of COVID-19, but also as a result of the trade tensions that we see today between between the US and China. Those tensions have had some impact in terms of international trade activities. The kind of tariff escalation that we have seen has moved many companies to rethink about how to produce and where to produce. So these two factors and the tense trade relationship between the US and China are really forcing companies to rethink their strategies. So we are seeing companies that are rethinking where to produce and how to produce. And I think that this is an opportunity for North America to show those producers, those sectors, those companies specifically, the benefits of establishing in North America to serve the North American market, but also to serve world markets. And the second point that I want to add is that in these very uncertain times, the kind of certainty that we can offer is, first, on one hand, the fact that we have USMCA in place, we know the rules. And from Mexico, as I mentioned in my presentation, we have preferential access to 50 countries, including the US and Canada, under the network of 13 free trade agreements. And I can tell you that when I talk to business, when I talk to companies worldwide, they always consider the preferential access that Mexico has as an asset, as a competitive edge for Mexico. So producing in Mexico will allow companies to have preferential access in North America, to build resilient and competitive regional value chains, but also to address an expanded market. Thank you.
Vice Minister de la Mora, I think we have time for a couple more questions.
Sure.
How can the USMCA help to the US and Mexico to face COVID-19 and the economic recovery ahead? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, COVID-19 has put a tremendous pressure on all of us. We were never expecting to live something like this. USMCA incorporates an institutional framework where we have the possibility to have a coordinated action plan, a coordinated dialogue from the level of ministers. The Free Trade Commission of the USMCA is integrated by our minister, Dr. Graciela Marquez, Mr. Robert Lighthizer, the USTR, and Madam Mary Ng, the Minister of SMEs and Trade Promotion in Canada. So that level of dialogue and that level of decision making and interaction is also trickled down to all levels by ministerial level. We have more than 20 committees that are in place. We have working groups. We have fora that allows civil society, companies, associations, academia to be part of the discussion. So I think that one of the most important contributions that USMCA can make, in addition to the kind of rules that we have incorporated in them, is the kind of dialogue and quick response that we can have in order to be able to address very uncertain times and also situations which probably we were never expecting or we have never dealt with before. But the kind of interaction, dialogue, and communication that we have at the highest level among authorities, I think that is unique in terms of this agreement. Thank you.
And the last question is the following. How will the USMCA help innovation in the North American region? Are there new opportunities for companies offering digital services?
Absolutely. That's an excellent question. And I think that one of the strongest components of USMCA has to do with the intellectual property chapter. This chapter, if you have the time to look into it, please do so. It's a very long chapter. It has more than 70 pages. And those pages include protection for all innovation in North America. It complies with domestic legislation of the three countries with respect to intellectual property protection, and this will encourage innovation, inventions, and it will protect, which I think that's the name of the game, it will protect the value added, it will protect all of the knowledge-based economy. So the kind of provisions that we have related to patent protection, trademark, copyrights, industrial secrets, industrial designs, and many more areas will be key to support the new economy, to support an economy where we focus on value added, on knowledge, on technology. In addition to that, we also have provisions for the digital economy, for e-commerce. And just to offer you an example, one of the provisions with respect to the digital economy has to do with the fact that there is no requirement for servers to be in the same place as where the service is offered. So we don't have any kind of data localization requirement, and that will definitely open opportunities. I think that the provisions in USMCA, along all of the USMCA, contain a number of provisions that will definitely strengthen the development of the new economy, the digital economy, and the service-based and knowledge-based economy that we want to see in North America. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may have the opportunity to ask one final question very quickly.
Sure. Sure.
Thank you. What new opportunities does USMCA brings for small, medium-sized enterprises?
Well, there are several, and I'm the first one that I think has to do with the fact that any company, no matter what size it is, they know exactly what the rules are because they have USMCA. So the fact that we have this set of rules will apply equally to big companies or to small companies. So it's access to information and access to opportunities. The second one that is more specific has to do with the fact that we have an SME chapter that will address specific needs of small and medium-sized companies. In the Ministry of Economy, for example, we have built a website that is called MIPYMES at the Ministry of Economy. We have also made available, and Gerardo is responsible for this, a help desk for consultations that will address the specific needs of SMEs. We know that large companies don't need us because they have access to all sorts of resources, but SMEs have resources with us at the US, at our embassy in the US, at our consulates, the help desk that we have, and all of these webinars, they're intended to help small and medium-sized companies find the opportunities that they need. And once they find the opportunity, that they know that they can do business, that doing business in North America is no mystery and should be no different than doing business in their local community. So this is an opportunity for them, what we have in USMCA. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Minister Luz Maria de la Mora, for your presentation. Thank you, Carlos Obrador, Consul of Mexico in Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Delaware. And thank you, Linda Collin, President of the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia, for hosting and organizing this event. We want to thank you all for your participation, and we hope that this event has been productive and useful for you to take advantage of the USMCA and do business with Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Undersecretary. Thank you, Linda. And thank you, Gerardo, as well.
Thank you, Vice Minister.
My pleasure.
You.